Well, thank you very much. Ms. Applebaum, I think that those remarks you made in reminding us all that an autocracy isn't one person, that it's a person sitting on top of a pyramid of people who are just as bad as the autocrat themselves, and in some respects even worse. And I think that's appropriate that we think about it like that, and I think it's appropriate that we act towards that, the whole system and not just one individual. So I appreciate that. I was really enjoyed hearing your comments about thinking bigger when it comes to promoting democracy. Here's a problem I have with it, and maybe you can give us some suggestions how we get past this, but I want to talk about Voice of America. You know, Voice of America puts out some good stuff. I've done some stuff for them, and I imagine everybody on this committee has probably done some things for them. But some of the other stuff I've heard them put out is just stunningly an attack on America itself. And I've heard programs where they use some of the difficulties we have, and we have difficulties in America, whether you're talking about race relations, whether you're talking about income equity and those kinds of things that people don't like. But I've heard some of those things Voice of America puts out, and I've complained about it, and I'm told to mind my own business that they have editorial freedom and they can put out whatever they want to put out, which I guess is true. But my gosh, the stuff I heard, I wouldn't want. I was dismayed that U.S. taxpayer money was using this to put. If I was somebody sitting somewhere and listening to this, say, "Boy, that's an awful place, this America place." What we've certainly got things better here under an autocracy than they have under a democracy. And so, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I really like the idea about having a TV in addition to radio. We've all been around the world and turned on the TV, and when you turn on in any major African city, you turn on the TV and you'll find a Chinese program that's done in Chinese and with translations for the people to watch. So I'm intrigued by that, but because of our freedoms and because of the disdain some Americans have for their own country because of some detail that they don't particularly like, how do you get around that? You've got some thoughts on that?
Thank you so much for that question, Senator. I mean, I think you could have asked that question of almost any journalism: who controls it, how it should be shaped. I do think that the one difference between American funding program and, say, Russian state funding program is precisely the fact that it's not controlled by this body or any other. It's not controlled directly by the U.S. government. And that may give it some credibility, even though you might not like everything that it says, or I might not like everything that it says. Its credibility comes from the sense of independence it has, and the more independence it is given, the better an advertisement for our political system and for our and for our media is. That doesn't mean that every journalist is perfect and every report is ideal. But I think the aim with U.S. broadcasting should always be to show at least a range of ideas.
Yeah, and I think that's a legitimate argument, and you make that well. But I'm telling you, the stuff I heard was just poisonous. I mean, it wasn't. It was stuff that I was embarrassed and ashamed that we were using taxpayers' money to tell the rest of the world about what an awful place America was. And I appreciate that independence, editorial independence is important. But boy, I tell you, we were sure going in the wrong direction, and I think we were doing more damage than we were good by putting that out. So anyway, I think that's a problem. But I agree with you. I mean, our adversaries are spending a tremendous amount of money on these, as we all see when we turn on the TV, whether you're in Europe or in Africa or anywhere else. So thanks for those thoughts. Ms. Twining, do you have any thoughts in that regard?
Sir, just that our way of life is very attractive and compelling, and I think we've spent a few years convincing ourselves that it's not. It's very compelling to people all over the world. The leaders of Russia and China have put their people in big propaganda bubbles, and they want to convince them that somehow we're decadent, we're internally divided, America's violent, all of these caricatures. And so anything we can do to help just tell the truth about the great country that we live in, we shouldn't forget that people around the world, including across Russia and China, actually would love to live in the United States if they could. So information should be working for us, not for our competitors. And I really appreciate the focus of this hearing, because we have a lot of work to do to get the real story in, not just about ourselves, but including about the corruption and just extraordinary totalitarian abuses that are happening in Russia and China.
That's a good thought, and I think if you could get enough of that in people's hands, they would have a clear understanding of what a wonderful country this is. I was in China right after China opened up, and there were actually a group of people watching a U.S. TV station off the satellite, and I said to the guide, I said, what's going on here? And he said, oh, they love American TV, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I can't help but think that somebody over there is going to have a problem with this, because they were watching American TV with advertising. They were advertising Cadillacs and Coca-Cola and new homes and everything else. And I said, what do people think about that? He says, oh, the government tells them that's all American propaganda. That's not really the way it is over here. So I suspect that the more of that got out, probably the better off we'd be. My time's up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.